Welcome back to another edition of GROSSBUSTERS Reviews. Last night I had the pleasure of finally being able to go see the new movie, Logan, the final installment of the Wolverine franchise. We went last night and saw it at the IMAX theater, which was amazing, by the way. I saw it with my good friend Deuce from the Happy Hour with Johnny and Deuce podcast, my friend Sean from Grapple Maniacs on Facebook, and Jason from Southern Dunes Golf and Country Club. So the movie Logan is loosely based off of the graphic novel Old Man Logan that came out a few years ago. And when I say loosely, I mean pretty much the title and the fact that Wolverine's old are the only similarities, and maybe the fact that it takes place in the future and starts in a desert setting. The movie is set in the year 2029, which you kind of tend to forget until you see the self-driving semis, and then you have to remind yourself, oh yeah, it's in the future. I recently read the Old Man Logan book and automatically knew that the movie would have nothing to do with the book because 90% of the characters in the book are characters that Fox can't even use. People like Hawkeye, the Hulk, the rest of the Avengers, a lot of the villains that we've seen elsewhere in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they pretty much couldn't use any of that in this movie. There were a few subtle similarities between the book and the movie. In the book, for example, Logan has a family and he's fallen on hard times and struggles to support them. And Hawkeye comes along and has a job to do, and so he asks Logan to be his driver to get him across the country, and he'll pay him a lot of money to do it. So, for example, in the movie, Charles Xavier takes the place of both caring for a family, because now he's caring for Charles Xavier, and he also takes the place of Hawkeye in a way as Logan's traveling companion. Also in the movie, Logan is an Uber driver, so I think that's kind of a play into that storyline with Hawkeye from the book as well, being that he's the driver. He's also offered a job for a lot of money in the movie to drive this little girl across the country. Also in the book, Logan has done something unspeakable in his past that deeply affects him. In the movie, they give a brief reference to Charles doing something along those lines, so I think they intentionally switched that around from the book. One big part of the storyline from the book that I wish they would have used in the movie was that in the book, like I said, Logan had done something so horrific in his past that he vowed to never use his claws ever again, and he didn't for years. He constantly takes beatings and just simply heals up. He barely tries to fight back and is more or less a pacifist at this point, and he only cares about the well-being of his family. But the build-up to that moment he uses his claws for the first time in the book was really great, and I think it would have worked really well in the movie too, to just build the anticipation of that moment of when is he going to go berserk. But let's face it, being that this is the last time we'll see Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine, we want to see the claws come out as much as possible, and this movie delivers exactly that. I'm not into giving spoilers on my channel, so I can't really say much as it pertains to the specifics of the plot, because there's a handful of revealing twists throughout the movie. But I will say that this movie hits you in all kinds of feels. This film is just an emotional roller coaster from all kinds of different angles. If you're somebody who has been invested in the X-Men franchise from the beginning, you will want to take some tissues for this one. There were grown men tearing up and sniffling all over the theater, and I never thought I'd say that about a Wolverine movie, but I can't stress that enough. After the movie, my buddy Deuce and I both agreed that because of the hype we'd been hearing leading up to the movie release, that we both went into it with the bar of expectation set too high. Don't get me wrong, the movie is great. It's by far the best Wolverine movie that's been done, but I wouldn't say it's the best comic book movie of all time or anything like that. However, I would even go out on a limb and say there should be some potential Oscar nomination buzz with some aspects of this movie. For instance, the film score and sound editing was absolutely perfect in this movie. It really enhanced the overall experience of the movie. And I honestly feel like Patrick Stewart deserves an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor in this. Although he's playing the same character as he has many times in the past, there's aspects of this performance that make this Charles Xavier so different from how he's ever had to play him in the past. It was absolutely incredible. It was so believable, and the same goes for Hugh Jackman. Yeah, we've seen him play Wolverine 100 times before, but this Wolverine is so much different than what we've seen in the past. Both brilliant performances, very well done. Now, without going into too much detail about the little girl we keep seeing in the trailers, which, if you're any kind of Wolverine fan, you already have a good idea of who this is, which, if this poster wasn't any indication to you, I don't know what else is. But I will say that this girl reminded me a lot of Hit Girl, but without the potty mouth. There's a scene not long after she's introduced that reminded me a lot of when Yoda fights Dooku in Attack of the Clones. She goes absolutely berserk, and it's glorious! And now it's time for the Grossbusters Review specialty, the Parental Advisory Review. Before I get into the Parental Advisory Review for Logan, I actually have to start by giving one for a specific teaser trailer that was played before the movie. The highly anticipated Deadpool 2. Sorry to disappoint, but Deadpool does not make an appearance in the actual movie. So very quickly, without giving anything away about what actually happens in the trailer sequence, there were at least 3 very audible F words, and there's something going on in the background where multiple cuss words and more F-bombs are heard, and there is a man's naked rear end. All the things the audience would expect from a Deadpool clip. It's of course hilarious and makes you more excited than ever to see another Deadpool movie. Now, as for Logan, which if you hadn't heard by now, this is a rated R film, and for good reason. By my count, there were 43 F-bombs, 26 S-words, 6 variations of ASS. There were 4 D words, 2 of which are GD words, and there were 3 HE double hockey sticks. There's also some Spanish curse words said in the beginning, but I don't know Spanish, so I don't know what those words were, but I just know that they were bad words because I remember them growing up. And I'm pretty sure I missed a few of the cuss words throughout the movie. There are a lot of instances where they cuss under their breath or faintly in the background, but I also think I may have missed a few simply because I got so caught up in some of the action that I just sat there glued to the screen with my mouth hanging open because I was so astonished at what was going on the screen. I would venture to say that 75 to 80% of all the bad language comes from Logan himself, some of which surprisingly actually comes from Charles Xavier. It is definitely a completely different type of Wolverine movie than we've ever seen before, and after the huge success of the first Deadpool movie with an R rating, Fox decided to run with an R-rated Wolverine movie. But if you've ever read a Wolverine comic, this is probably the most accurate film portrayal of a true, gritty Wolverine comic. Aside from the bad language, there were 3 or 4 name-calling instances referring to genitalia, both male and female references, and there are 2 other indirect references to male genitalia, one being the mention of spotted dick, which is actually a food, so it's a play on words with that one, and another reference where Xavier accuses Logan of keeping him drugged up because he prefers him to be pharmaceutically castrated, which is really just a metaphor. There was also a brief glimpse of nudity as a woman reveals her breasts. There's drinking throughout the entire movie because Logan is a drunk and just actively drinks throughout the entire movie. There's no need to go into detail about the graphic violence, or else I'd be here for an hour trying to describe it all to you. I will say there's some close-up graphic violence, there's some slow-motion graphic violence, there's a couple of decapitated rolling heads, and there is some violence both inflicted by and inflicted on children, which is a little uncomfortable at times, to be honest, and it takes some getting used to. All of my friends that went to see the movie with me, we all agreed about that after the movie, that was a little uncomfortable at times, and you had to get used to it. And there are a few references to suicide throughout the movie. With all that said, This is not a movie for kids. I cannot stress that enough. Movies like this are exactly why I started this channel to begin with. As a parent myself, I got tired of seeing other parents walking in movies like Deadpool with their young kids or even their kids' friends not knowing exactly what they're walking into. Yes, it's a comic book movie, and yes, a lot of little boys are fans of Wolverine, but this is not the yellow and blue suit Wolverine from your childhood. There are a few Easter egg nods to the yellow and blue Wolverine in this movie, but Logan ain't that Wolverine, bub. Well, that's all for my review of Logan. But once again, I want to give a shout out to my friends at the Happy Hour with Johnny and Deuce. They do a podcast twice a week that you can check out on soundcloud.com/happyhourpodcast, where they talk about video games, wrestling, movies, comics. They have a ton of cosplay guests. Pretty much anything pop culture and nerddom related, you'll find it there on the Happy Hour with Johnny and Deuce. I've been on their show a few times for movie reviews, so the least I can do is give them a shout out on here. Deuce is always on the loose, getting me all the best ticket hookups in town. Give them a follow on Twitter at HH Podcast Show and on Instagram at Happy Hour Podcast. And simply given the nature of my channel, I do have to give a disclaimer with that shout out. There's typically some adult language used on the Happy Hour show. But good guys that I've known for many, many years, go check them out, support them, and show them some love with a follow. And last but not least, you may have noticed the new artwork on the wall behind me, which I have an artist known as Ness to thank for that. That's N-E-H-S, which he got from 1 Corinthians 2:9 and stands for No Eye Has Seen. Please, please, please do yourselves a favor and check him out on Instagram at officialness and officialness.com to see more amazing paintings like these. He's got a ton of comic and movie character paintings that you will absolutely love. I can't recommend him enough. I know it's been a while since my last review, but please subscribe and stay tuned because this summer is slap full of huge movies. Just be sure to cut me some slack if I don't post on a regular schedule. Please remember, I've got 2 kids budget and schedule now, and can't always make it to every movie I want to see. But thanks for watching. Hope this helps the parents out there. And until next time, see ya!